JavaScript on server. Are you insane? What are you smoking? What's wrong with you? And I came across Meteor and I was quite stunned with the real time and with all the other things that it could do. The demos were, even though small, but they were like super interesting. Working with open sources, learning new stuff from what I would say, are much better programmers than I, especially almost 10 years back.
Hello, I'm Gabs, developer advocate here at Meteor, and today we'll talk to Jan Dvorak, as known as Storyteller in the Meteor community. He'll tell us how he got involved with Meteor in the first place, how he started contributing to open source, and a little about the past, present, and future of the framework. So let's dive into it.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jan Dvorak. I am most known as Storyteller or Storyteller CZ on most social media like GitHub, Twitter, and around.
And Jan, how did you get started with Meteor in the first place?
So it all started back in 2015. Maybe actually even earlier than that. 2014, I started my master's program. So at the end of that year, towards the 2015 school year, I was looking for what I'm going to build my master's project in. And at that time, Node was still relatively early, but it was already making quite big waves. My initial thought was like, JavaScript on server. Are you insane? What are you smoking? What's wrong with you?
Everybody thought that at the time, I guess.
Yes. And then I came across Meteor and I was probably quite stunned with the real time and with all the other things that it could do. The demos were, even though small, but they were like super interesting. And then when I started working, trying it out, really loved how easy it was. It was a bit different, coming from the PHP world and all that stuff that, you don't have to, upload to server and all that stuff. You actually just do, Meteor run. And it works. And very quickly, I kind of really liked how easy and fast I was working with it. Back then, it was in Blaze, but as I was coming into it, so it was 2016, early 2016, I think my first initial commit to the master's, my master's project was in February, and around April or so, actually maybe March, April, was when they allowed React in, and it looked like React is going to be the next big thing. So in order to have my project live longer, you could say, I've migrated to React, which back then was a very quick migration. So usually one component was one, page, that was before in Blaze. So it's still a bit of legacy stuff that I sometimes have to deal with in my code base. But even that, it was, easy to get working. And I think despite, you could say, more complication and my code base growing constantly, I still have not found anything that comes close to how Meteor makes it easy for me. But that also might be because I'm maybe just too comfortable with Meteor.
Yeah, it's almost 10 years already, right? So would you say that at the time you started using it and trying it for the first time, compared to other alternatives, the developer experience was very different, right?
Yeah, Meteor developer experience for me was superb. And some people complained, I want to use Angular, I want to use something different for specific parts. And that's also why I would say things quite shattered. And I would say it's a very specific things in the JavaScript community as a whole that everybody likes to, or at least the people, the movers of, I would say, the community, like to kind of tinker and constantly change something, and are very much frown upon like any, I could say, standards or establishing standard ways of doing things, which I would say is in very sharp contrast to the company developer or the corporate developer who clocks out at 5 and is no longer concerned with things. They prefer if you had like a strict guide of how to do things. And that's like also one of the things that I like about Meteor is that, at least in the beginning, not so much now, in a way, for good and for bad, was the kind of rule set. This is how you do things, and if you want to do something differently, then this is how you do it. If you go beyond that, then that's kind of on your own. And I would say there was quite a lot of people who complain about it. That's why we got React in. With now, especially with the current changes, it's questionable if it's a good choice for Meteor apps going forward. It will probably work for most things, but I would say in certain aspect with React 19, it's starting to stretch some of the concepts there. So I'm looking for potential replacements, but that's another topic.
Your first project with Meteor.js was your master's project.
I don't think it was my first. I might have like some smaller ones before to kind of give it a go. I do remember one of the projects we had was we used in the class, we used to kind of query Wattpad API, which was kind of back then available. And so we can, go in, grab the data and kind of make our own database out of that, because that was kind of the task, see how, if we can kind of make the basics of database. So it was a lot of fun with working with that. We actually found a security issue in there, which we reported. So that was that might have been like one of the more serious first projects that I did. But the one that's still long-standing is my master's projects, which eventually became Literal Universe.
Okay, so I just realized that I did not ask where you're from.
So I am from Prague, Czechia, in the middle of Europe, you could say.
And this master's you were doing is in which university? What were you studying?
So I was going to Rochester Institute of Technology in upstate New York by the Great Lakes, just across Canada. And I was studying back then, it was Masters in Information Sciences and Technologies. The name of the program has changed over the years. It's something else, but in essence, it's IT.
And since the beginning of your story with Meteor, you already started to get involved with the community and open source, or this is something that came later?
That came, I would say, later. There was the big, discussion about, adding React into Meteor or being able to use React in Meteor instead of the native place, as the, MDG, Meteor Technology Group, kind of shifted towards Apollo. Then there was a lot of discussion about that, and that's initially where I kind of started getting involved, just like occasional comment here and there. As kind of that died out and some big people left, I started being more active. It also correlated with me doing other stuff. After the masters, after I finished my school, I was over the summer in New York City and stayed till spring of next year. And during that time, I got involved with the Meteor New York group, where I met people like Alim Ghaffar and many others. So I was heavily involved in that, being there, helping people with Meteor, speaking about Meteor. What I learned, I was really a greenhorn back then, still learning a lot, making a lot of mistakes. But so I first got involved on this local level, and from that, you could say, more on the forums and eventually contributing to the core and beyond.
This work of being part of the community and talking to people and solving issues and discussing specific stuff on forums, for some people sound kind of intimidating, and depending on the community, they might embrace you in a little, let's say, warmer way, and in others it's kind of hard to get involved. And how it was for you? The community was welcoming. How did you feel at the time? Do you remember?
I didn't have any issues. It was very welcoming. I think, especially like with smaller communities like Meteor, even though at the beginning it was still pretty big. If you want to be active, if you want to contribute, for example, in Meteor New York, if being there and volunteering, hey, I'm going to run these Like then we had like a Saturday's cafe meetups that people came in and coded together, and so they could, work on various projects or just, ask for help with their own projects. So I volunteered that I'm kind of going to be the person that's going to run it, which gave other people organizing, say, the more bandwidth to do other stuff. And I think everywhere it's doesn't matter, I think, which community, if you are willing to do that, then actually come through and do what you said you are going to do, that's going to be welcomed. Of course, unless it's destructive, but that's a different story altogether. So from that point, that was easy, and I wasn't from like, I've looked at other communities that I was watching like more like as an observer than anything else. And my approach was always, I didn't come in and say like, I want to change everything. I want to be the leader now, all that stuff for me. And I think this is very much the pattern also with Meteor, which I wrote also in my article. There's a lot to be said about, you could say, loyalty to the community, which means, have you been around? Do you have the experience? Are you a positive force? And what are your contributions? So, being around for a long time kind of already gives you up, kind of the senior rank. People are more willing to listen to. That also has partially to do because the community went through a lot of rough experiences in the past. So there's partially of that camaraderie. And then being, contributor, being respectful, and what I would say normally would be kind of like the basic things, how to, or kind of go. So if you look even at my core contributions, the first contributions were things like, fixing typo, upgrading a link to an API. I think might have been actually one of the first contribution was updating the Facebook API version, which is something I still do to this day when I come around to it. By the way, if you want to start in your community and kind of do like your initial first contribution to get a bit more into the code, this one is like super easy. Just go into the OAuth Facebook package, find where there is the link to the OAuth API, and there's usually some version. Check with the official Facebook docs, see if there is anything that prevents updating to the latest version, and just do the upgrade. And then another thing is, once you submit a PR, actually explain what you're doing, why are you doing it, link, for example, to the Facebook documentation. That's kind of the beginning, and then you can take on more big tasks. Don't come in and say like, here is a big PR that changes everything, or that adds a big new thing that we have to maintain afterwards. People are probably not going to be looking nicely at it, like okay, who the heck are you? Why are you doing this? What's going on here? So that's a big one. And then being humble, because big part of this, I think especially for me, working with open source is learning new stuff from what I would say are much better programmers than I, especially almost 10 years back. So for me, when I submitted a pull request, and I got a review that pointed out okay, you can write this better, instead of for each, use for loop and so on. These things make me better as a programmer. Now that I'm starting to work even more with people who what I would call would be the corporate programmers, I can see the difference, because they don't have, I would say, or depends a lot, but I've seen with many that there's kind of repeated pattern, same bad, I would say, coding patterns that if you were contributing to open source would have been called out a long time ago. That is not a good pattern. So unless then you go and stay a long time on a project and then focus on performance and code maintainability, you are not likely to learn those things.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. What motivated you to continue contributing and until this day? Because at least initially, open source is not something that will give you money. And I have already seen developers that don't like it saying things like open source is work or free or something like that, something depreciative. But no, obviously it's not that. But for you, the main point was to learn and to be in the space with other better programmings, absorbing their knowledge, absorbing their experience, and growing yourself.
Yes, that was definitely one of the the big motivator for me, to learn, because especially back then, Meteor by itself, even to this day, is still in many aspects revolutionary. And I would argue that in some cases, the JavaScript ecosystem is just catching up on certain concepts that were, in Meteor almost 10 years ago. So, learning from that and being able to contribute to that is big thing, and that I think goes to any big projects, because you are going to have top rate programmers working on them. So if you get the opportunity for them to review your pull request or even following what they are doing is important. That's also another thing, being part of the community, because then the work doesn't feel as lonely if you are part of a community, if you're aware that there are other people doing something. So if you, for example, go and travel somewhere, you can potentially meet people. So last time when I traveled to Cyprus for a conference, at the conference and also outside of the conference, I was able to meet people from Meteor. We could discuss various topics, not just Meteor. So it was super interesting. And finally, I would say the big part is, I want to also, with me contributing, it's also helping myself. I'm fixing bugs that I encounter. I'm adding feature that I want to see in there and that I want to share. A lot of the time is, I have this, for example, feature, but, I need it just maybe for this little projects, or I think other people can use it. But if I just keep it for myself, then I have to maintain it. Yes, maybe I don't have to worry about a lot of other scenarios, but long term, it will probably bite me in the behind that I develop something that's just a private. So when there's like an API change and I have to go back to it, while if I put it into the open source, when somebody is making change to something that changes the API, my change that has been there on the feature, it's already taken into consideration. The fixes are made. I don't have to worry about it, and I can just continue using my feature that I developed as I wanted to. And of course, other people benefit as well. And there's also another going to the money. I am not just coding. I'm also using a lot of open source. Every company today is using open source in some shape or form. So contributing back, I think, is absolutely, I would say, the most ethical thing that you can do. And I feel that it's absolutely necessary unless we want to go to walled gardens, unless we want to make things even worse through tragedy of the commons. So contributing back, and then I think for companies, it's their responsibility to support open source, especially for the packages that they use. There's a lot of talk these days, about open source developer burnout, or hostile actors putting malware or spyware into software, or doing other bad things. There's a lot of talk about supply chain security. Organizations like Tidelift are trying to ensure that things remain secure for the big projects. So I think for every company, it's really up to them to go into their package JSON or just look at their dependencies and make an audit and see, okay, which ones are the most important for us, and then go and either financially contribute, in which case I would say it might be better, instead of just adding a little bit to the big fund for the big projects, to maybe find a smaller one that doesn't get that attention, but also needs funding, because then you have much more impact with much less money there, as compared to say, we use Linux, so let's contribute to Linux. Linux is supported by massive corporations, so that'll be fine. But you can have say $100 amount to some smaller projects, and you are really going to feel the difference. You're also going to have much more say in what's going on there, because you are supporting that. And even if if it's not financial, be a part of the community, be engaged with what's going on. And that's not just, I would say, as a good ethical thing and responsible company, but also to be aware of what's going on. I occasionally get some requests to, sometimes update an application or do something, and then I look at it and it's like 5 years old version of Meteor that is running and nobody has touched anything there since it was originally developed. I would say that's also one of the reasons why we have oftentimes many problem with supply chain attacks and similar things, that people got too addicted to the free stuff and think that a lot of bad patterns have evolved from that. And the same thing with technological stuff and maintenance. Sometimes people, I would say, may compare it to hardware. Oh, I just built this I don't know, this car, and I bought it. It's mine, and I don't have to worry about or do anything. And in 5-10 years, I'm just going to buy a new one. First of all, that doesn't even work with this analogy, because with car, you need to go for controls. Go to the service to make sure that your oil is changed, all that stuff. And it's the same thing with software. And I feel often that people don't realize that, and people are angry. Why is my 5-year-old software no longer running on the new machine? Have you tried, actually investing into upgrading that and maintaining that? So that's, I think, what people need to realize, that there is always maintenance involved, and always will be, always was. It's just that a lot of services, the big ones, like Google, Facebook, and open source as well, a lot of people got the idea, okay, it's, software is free, it just works
magically, right?
Yes, that's we could talk, for hours on this issue, but I think this is now changing more, that we have high profile, let's say, security issues that are coming around, and it's also in relations to services. So I'm kind of looking forward how things are going to evolve in the future, because I think it's going to be potentially dramatic, and there's multiple roads that we can take to go to back, either to completely walled garden, and that you have to pay for all the software, or hopefully something that will be allowed for free, and a lot of other topics to discuss here, because it's this is part of the human experience. So all the things that's happening in the world, the tensions between nations, the different cultures that come in, because one of the big parts is that open source has been built on a high trust society model. So, and once you start getting in bad actors, then this starts falling apart. XZ as well. I remember when I was 10 years back, when I was chairing anime convention at the university, we're going through the rules of the convention that were established over the last 10 years of prior experiences, and was like, what is this rule about, this specific, cosplay thing? And one of the alumni came, oh, that was back in that year, that, idiot came in, with this cosplay that has this thing and injured, at the dance party so many people, and that we had to put it in. So, that's what we are seeing with open source in general. It started out very open, wild west, and things are getting clamped down. And it's usually have it like with societies. If people share the same values and goals, then I think things are moving smoothly. But once you start having people coming in who are malicious or who do bad things or just things, then there comes the need for rules and restrictions, which in a way is good and bad. And with Meteor community especially, that's why we are, I would say, in a way a bit more suspicious when somebody comes in with specific behaviors that we have seen in the past, which always meant that something bad is happening for the communities. I would call it the corporate speak. So that I would say the flowery language of that corporation use usually when they are announcing something bad. That's probably very common. But if you have those behavioral patterns, then that's going to cause a lot of people in the Meteor community, I think, to have, I would say, allergic reaction, because we had in the past. So that I would say also is kind of a big difference, that in the Meteor community we are much more, I would say, laid back unless you come in like a corporate robot in, then that's when everybody for example, it's like, okay, what's going on here? So we are in a way kind of defensive of our community that we have established here from potential people who we would perceive may not have a good intention for us. But at the end of the day, if you are unsure, feel free to reach out to me or any other like prominent members privately to ask them if what maybe you want to say or something, if the tone maybe is all right, because sadly those things or not sadly, but that's just how things are. So those things matter, and especially over online it could be misinterpreted, and we have some people in the community that are sometimes very hard to communicate by, because they have a very specific worldview, specific way of writing and everything. So but at the same time, since they have been with us for such a long time, once they write, okay, is this guy, that this is his style, and we just have to roll with it. So we are much more permissive, you could say, if you have been around, if you have the track record. So that's the benefit of, I would say, seniority, that people know you. But if people don't know you and you would come with maybe similar approach, you would probably get a very different reaction.
Speaking a bit about the future, when you first encountered Meteor.js, you mentioned that the things that impressed you were the real-time capabilities and the developer experience overall. Now in 2024, what are the reasons to use Meteor.js nowadays, and what to expect from the future of the platform with Meteor.js 3?
So why I still use Meteor? First of all, I have been using it already for such a long time that moving to something else and going through the hassle of rewrite my project to it is just not worth it, especially since I have not reached critical mass and financial success that would require. So that's the first thing. I'm kind of stuck. Even if I'm at the 2 seconds, every time I tried to like any of the other new technologies, it never came, to the ease that I've experienced with Meteor, and they're just never had this, how should I say it, click, the magical moment that I had, with Meteor, that I could just, jump straight in and starting what I want to. For example, with Next.js, there were also other issue that I didn't like I could say the decisions that they made, which is something I've criticized, earlier, that people didn't like these specific patterns. For example, I didn't like that, we had a file-based router, and I kind of was used to more of the Meteor way or now React router way. So that's things like that even like some of the new things. And also I felt that they were mostly geared towards a bit different problem that I was trying to solve with Meteor, because Meteor is whenever you have real-time collaborative or any like real-time, and lately also you could say an application that's not necessarily publicly visible all the time, some of the pages, that Meteor is great. For example, I would not use Meteor to make a static page, even though it would be possible, but it's just not the use case. So that's that big thing, that use case for Meteor for me still remains valid and the same. So there's nothing kind of forcing me to move away. Though I could imagine that in the future with Literary Universe, we are going to split the application into one for the readers, one for the writers, the application behind. But that's, hopefully, if that happens, then that would be at the time where you already heard about us from outside of our Meteor circles. And what's in the future for Meteor 3? I think the big thing is catching up technologically with Node.js in many aspects. That has been the theme with Meteor 3. I believe that's going to continue, because upgrading just the internals from fibers to await async has been the main thing and suffocated everything else that kind of came to the top. So once we are with the 3, we finally can move onward on all the other more exciting things. I think there might be a lot of modernizations in many aspects. And we have already started discussing it, Meteor being able to work completely fine offline with GroundDB and similar extensions. I think there really should be more of a doubling down on the amazing account system, which was also another big major thing that drove me to Meteor, that I could easily establish account system and have all the bells and whistles in. I think we still need to catch up there to the two new technologies for authorization, which we still don't have, which is for hardware keys and other one I'm blanking on right now, passkeys, I think that they call it. So, we kind of need to catch up on those. And with roles package in the community, we are planning also to provide more advanced demos so people can set up faster, just because they will see examples and they can easily copy code. And I think moving even beyond that, what Meteor I think is going to become in the future, or at least from all the discussion we are having in setting, is it will become an amazing starting point for any SaaS service, primarily because of how easy it will be to add all the different aspects that you need. There is this website called Enterprise Ready, which lists all the different functionality that you need to have for enterprise, things like OAuth, roles, audit logs. So I personally will be, pushing more in that direction to have that. And I think there are, especially because it all centers around the account system. So working around that, expanding on this strength together with improving all the stuff around real time, which you can always improve performance, always, do something better, is going to be crucial. And I think we will have a lot of difficult technological discussion in the future. But I'm, now that Meteor 3 is out soon and we have kind of overcome the most difficult ones, we can go back to talk about features and where to move this forward. And it's, like with any framework, you can take it in every different, direction you can imagine. But I think doubling down around the account system will become the focus and the biggest benefit, because as it was always Meteor to get started was super fast, but not just, Meteor install and Meteor run, but also, just add the accounts packages in, a few other ones like the roles, and you don't have to worry about what oftentimes is the most annoying and error-prone aspect of your application. Instead, you can just go straight to building the value for your customers, or the fun part of your application.
Tell us a little bit more about your work nowadays in Meteor, but also in Literary Universe and your other projects.
So right now, I wear a lot of hats. I have two startups, Literary Universe, where I'm the CEO, and I have another startup which is in the telecommunication industry, where I'm a CTO. So that's, I would say that one is providing, you could say, a game and a software or an application for telecommunication centers to motivate agents to sell and achieve the goals that the management want to achieve, while also trying to limit the churn and turnover of the agents, which is pretty high in that industry, which is just an interesting use case that we see a lot of for Meteor, which is for corporate behind the wall applications. So the universe, that one is a startup that we are now really pushing to get running. We are officially in the open beta, and we are hoping to have a soft launch later in summer, once we finish all the stuff around Meteor 3 and payments. Beyond that, for Meteor community, I'm one of the co-founders and maintainers of Meteor community packages, which has the task of taking over popular Meteor packages, upgrading them, or at least managing them, so that whenever somebody submits a pull request, we can create a new release and get that out to people, so that, like with Meteor 3, which we'll see, there are a lot of packages are no longer maintained. So if you are under Meteor Coin packages, at least there are people like me, other Jan and Kelly and other, that can come in, merge pull request and publish stuff. There are few top packages that we also are trying to actively develop with new features as much as possible. But most of it's maintenance work, because we just don't have enough of people, helping out with what's needed, because we have over 60 packages. Beyond that, on Mondays, I host my personal stream, which is primarily about Meteor, and it's most often me coding or working on specific projects, or once in a while, usually once a month or once in 2 months, I have more of a philosophical or other topic that I talk about. So that's that. And on Friday, I host or co-host with Alim and Jan Meteor Dispatches, which is news from Meteor and programming in general, JavaScript ecosystem in particular. So we talk about all the news things that has happened during the past weeks, and add in some additional good information that we want to share. So some useful resources, and once in a while, also we have like hot topics or deep dives on particular issues. And starting in July, I will be every other week hosting a help desk on my channel, which will be going for 1 hour to the forums, Slack, or elsewhere where there are questions about Meteor or bugs, and going deeper into them, answering the questions, looking for solutions. So we'll see how that goes.
That's a lot of stuff, right? That's a lot of different stuff to be working on, and you also do consultancy on Meteor projects, right?
Yes, so I have a GitHub sponsors, so people like what I'm doing and would like to support me and allow me to spend more time on open source. I'm on GitHub sponsors, and recently I've opened up a consultancy. So until Meteor 3 officially is released, I have running a discount for if you want to discuss about Meteor 3 upgrade, and from that maybe we can arrange additional consulting or me helping you out with something. So recently. I had a consulting, and at the end of it, the guy said that in that 1 hour he learned more about Meteor than he learned himself over the last 2 years. So I think the 10 years that I've spent with Meteor, or almost 10 years, can really help anybody who wants to ask me questions. It's not like I will know everything, but given that how much I'm involved and how much I watch all the pull requests and everything going in, and I know all the other packages around, I can at the very least direct you in the correct direction to help for you to find your problem pretty much faster than you trying to search on it by your own.
Pretty cool. So links to schedule a consultancy with Jan, and also of all the other projects that he mentioned, are going to be here in the description, so you can get in touch with him and follow his 5-6 different projects. And thank you so much for your time, for being here with me today. Is there anything else that I didn't ask you and you'd like to share with the community?
Because sometimes people feel afraid when you see somebody like on a video, or you kind of have the idea, this is a big name. Don't be afraid to reach out to me about anything that might concern you. Send me a message on the forums, on Slack, or through any other means. The only thing to say that as you can imagine, I'm very busy. So as long as you're respectful and realize that it might take some time for me to get back to you, I usually will. Sometimes what happens is, when I see a message that has a particular questions, I might take a day or two to think about it before I get to you, sometimes even longer. But and if I don't get back to you, feel free to follow up, because sometimes things fall through, you get lost. If you want to talk, really, then consulting the consulting meetings are the best because I watch that every day if there's new meeting coming in. So, get on that. And I would say get on that quickly because the discounts for Meteor 3 migrations will be expiring probably by the end of the summer. The price is going to go up with each release of Meteor after Meteor 3.
All right. So thank you very much one more time, Jan. And I'll see you in the community.
Thank you for having me.